Chapter 4871. Thinking of this, she could not help but look ahead nervously. She thought that if he was in danger, she would definitely rush forward to save him. Whoosh! All right, big brother, kill him. The surrounding cultivators shouted as they waved the weapons in their hands. Fengjie watched for a while and also saw the great disparity in strength between the two sides. The man called Bone-Devouring Shura's attacks were ruthless. It could be said that every move was filled with killing intent. Every move was a move to kill. On the other hand, Tai Song's skills were much inferior to his. He was probably a weapon refiner, so combat strength was probably not his strong suit. The two of them had only exchanged a few moves, but Tai Song had already suffered several injuries. Moreover, his attacks were always at a disadvantage. If the battle dragged on, he would definitely lose. Bang! In just a short while, Tai Song was kicked away by his opponent. His entire body fell several meters away. His body rubbed against the ground as he retreated, leaving a trail of friction on the ground. Yunyang, who had been watching the battle, could not help but cry out in surprise. She immediately wanted to go forward, but she was pulled back by Mir. Your injuries haven't healed yet. You'll be courting death if you go forward, Mir said as she pulled her back with both hands, not allowing her to go forward. At this moment, the Bone-Devouring Shura looked at Tai Song, who had fallen to the ground, and revealed a sinister smile. He held the triangular blade in his hand and spun it. His figure suddenly pounced forward. The triangular blade in his hand carried a terrifying aura as it fiercely pierced towards Tai Song's chest. He intended to take his life with this move. No! Yunyang cried out in surprise. Her legs were not weak, and her face was pale. Tai Song fell to the ground, unable to save himself as he watched the triangular blade piercing towards him. The aura of death instantly enveloped him, making him feel as if he had stepped into the land of death. A terrifying aura enveloped him, making it difficult for him to even breathe. However, he did not close his eyes, nor did he cry out in surprise. He also did not beg for mercy or ask for help. He only stared fixedly at the person who was coming towards him. However, in the next moment, he saw a sharp sword chi that was suffused with a green light slashing down in front of his eyes. It was so fast that it was like lightning in the sky, catching him off guard. The sword energy came so suddenly that even the Bone-Devouring Shura didn't expect such a powerful sword energy to suddenly appear. He wanted to block and dodge, but he only had time to turn around and look at the sword energy that was coming at him. It was a beautiful woman in red. She stood with a sword that glowed with azure light in her hand. The azure sword force that contained a powerful pressure came from the sword in her hand. His eyes were wide open, and in that instant his eyes were filled with shock and despair. He opened his mouth and instinctively cried out. No, before his voice died away, the sword chi had already slashed down, cleaving him into two halves with a single strike. Blood spurted out, and his spiritual aura leaked out. His entire body also fell backwards. As he fell, the two halves of his body also shattered at this moment. Like a piece of wood that was split in half, the halves fell to the ground. On the ground, fresh blood gushed out. That person's internal organs also flowed out. It was frightening and nauseating. Big brother. Chapter 4872. Tai Song stared blankly at the two halves of the corpse in front of him. He couldn't help but gulp as he looked at the red-clothed Fengjie not far away. Although they knew that she was the Phoenix Master on the way here, they had never seen her in action. Now that he saw her kill the God King Level Bone-Devouring Shura with a single strike, he finally realized that even though she was a woman, she was powerful enough to destroy the world. Kill her. Avenge Big Brother. Those people came back to their senses and stared at Fengjie with bloodshot eyes. They drew their swords and surrounded her. Seeing this, Tai Song on the ground hurriedly came back to his senses. He quickly got up and went to kill those cultivators with his saber. Song Mir, who was by Fengjie's side, stared at those people and smiled mischievously. She stretched out her hand, and a wok appeared in her hand. She rushed forward and slapped the wok towards the cultivators. She wasn't a match for the bone-devouring Shura, but she could at least kill a few of these people. After all, she was only released from the clan to gain experience after passing the test. The two sides began to fight. Yunyang, who was standing by Fengjiu's side, didn't just stand by and watch. Her body was gradually recovering. Although she hadn't fully recovered her strength, it wasn't much of a problem for her to fight. However, when she was about to step forward, Fengjiu stopped her. "You guys come back," Fengjiu said and blocked with her sword. She deflected the sharp blade in front of her and kicked out at the same time. When they heard Fengjiu's words, they dodged the attacks and came behind Fengjiu. In that instant, they saw a pressure emanating from Fengjiu. Almost at the same time, they froze on the spot as if they were in great pain. They couldn't take a step forward for a long time. They spat out a mouthful of blood and fell to their knees. At that moment, a cold light flashed in front of them. Sharp sword Qi crisscrossed and slashed across their throats, taking their lives in an instant. The people behind her paused for a moment and realized that they didn't need to do anything as long as they were by her side. "Go and search them for anything valuable," Fengjiu said as he sheathed his sword. "Yes." When the three of them heard this, they hurriedly went forward to take all the valuables and handed them over to her. Fengjiu took the items and said, "Since we're already here, let's see if there's a place to rest. Let's find a place to rest before we continue. Miss, there should be a town some distance ahead. We can rest there," Tai Song said as he pointed in the direction of the main road. "Then let's go." She removed the flying feather from her waist and sat on it before heading in that direction. The three people behind him quickly followed on their flying swords or aircraft. In Cloud Sky Mountain, Yer was sitting cross-legged under a tree. Both of her hands were supporting her chin, and she was blinking her big eyes while looking at the clouds and mist in front of her. She missed her mother. She really missed her mother. She really wanted to see her mother. In the past, his mother wasn't here. Now, his mother had ascended, but they still couldn't see her. Chapter 4873. You turned to look at him. "Big brother, don't you miss mother?" "How?" Stood beside her and looked at the clouds in front of them. Yes. How could he not miss her? He also wanted to see his mother and see if she was okay. However, their master didn't allow them to go down the mountain. There was also a boundary array in the mountain. Without their master's permission, they couldn't go out. "Big brother, let's go out quietly and find mother, okay?" Yu's eyes lit up, and her childish voice carried a trace of excitement. "Mother has ascended, so she must have an immortal mansion. We haven't been there yet. Mother's immortal mansion must be very safe there. Moreover, she is very powerful. Even if there is danger, she will protect us. Big brother, let's go see mother, okay?" She stretched out her small hand and pulled his sleeve coquettishly. After all, there were only the three of them and their master in this mountain. Moreover, ever since they came back, their master didn't allow them to go down the mountain. She really wanted to go out and see her mother and let her hug her. Big brother, let's go out. Call brother, let's sneak out, okay? We have the ability to protect ourselves now. Even if we meet bad people, we won't be afraid. Big brother, okay?" She pleaded softly, her small face full of expectation. How? Was struggling in his heart. On one hand, there seemed to be a little person in his heart saying, Go out and see mother because he also misses her very much. But on the other hand, there was another voice saying, Master doesn't allow them to go down the mountain. Mother also told them to listen to Master and cultivate while here. They shouldn't go down the mountain, little sister. Just as how was struggling in his heart, Mu Chen's voice came. She saw that he was still holding a sword in his hand. His face was still dripping with sweat, and his clothes were also soaked with sweat. He was panting slightly, looking as if he had just finished practicing. Big brother, you saw him and couldn't help but call out softly, lowering her head. She thought that he would definitely scold her again. Sure enough, just as she thought this, she heard her brother's voice. During this period of time, you haven't been concentrating on your cultivation. Now you want Big Brother to take you down a mountain. Do you know that if you do this, not only will Shurzuan be angry, Mother will also be angry? Mu Chun reprimanded her sternly, like an older brother. Mother's enemies are all very powerful. If we stay by her side, we will definitely be treated as her weakness and be used to blackmail her. When that time comes, what will you do if she is in danger? I just miss Mother, Her head drooped lower and lower, and her voice was choked with sobs. She was a little sad and also a little wronged. We all miss Mother, but we can't help Mother much. However, we can do it so as not to drag Mother down. Muchin looked at her and said, "Focus on your cultivation. After some time, we'll ask Master to bring us to see Mother. If Master brings us there, I'm sure nothing will happen. Listen to your brother and cultivate well." Our rubbed her head and said, You responded softly and didn't say anything else. "Big brother, I learned a new set of swordsmanship today and want to spar with you." Muchin looked at him and said. Chapter 48-74. Sat there and watched them practice swordsmanship not far away. She couldn't help hugging her knees and lowering her chin on her knees, staring blankly at the clouds in front of her. How who was accompanying Muchin, was also paying attention to her. Seeing her in low spirits, he also felt bad. After practicing for a while with Muchin, he saw that she was still sitting there without moving. He couldn't help but worry. "Why don't we go and beg Master? I'm a little worried about you, How? Said, frowning slightly and pursing his lips. Seeing this, Muchin also felt bad. He nodded and said, "Let's go and beg Master." With that, the two of them went to their master's cave residence. Sat there. Although she knew that her brothers were right and that she should listen to them, she still missed her mother so much. The more she tried not to think about it, the more she wanted to think about it. In the past, she couldn't see her mother and couldn't see her. Now that they were both in the immortal realm, even if she couldn't see her openly, she could at least secretly see her mother, right? She could just watch from afar and come back after a glance. Thinking of this, she immediately got up and ran to her cave residence. She went to the place where she usually practiced calligraphy and left a message for her brothers. Immediately, she called out her contract beast, the nine-tailed fox. "I want to go to my mother's place. Can't you travel through space? Send me there." "Master, it's not good to go secretly, is it?" the nine-tailed fox asked worriedly. Although it became smaller and weaker because of its master's strength, it still had the ability to travel through space. But if it left like this, wouldn't Emperor Qing be angry? "Master won't let me go down the mountain. If I don't sneak, how can I go? And big brother and brother won't let me go down the mountain, so I can only sneak down the mountain." Said, looking at it, and said, "Hurry up, otherwise they will come back later." The nine-tailed fox was a little hesitant and said, "But my strength is so weak now, even though I still have the ability to travel through space, but I'm not sure if there won't be a mistake, so I'm worried." It was worried that its master would be sent to other places. That would be troublesome. We're going to be sent to. No matter how wrong he was still in the upper immortal realm, right? Okay, it's okay. Even if I can't go directly to where Mother is, I can go find her myself. But I'm worried. It was really worried. If something happened to the little master, what should he do? No, but there's nothing to worry about. Father and Mother both said that I'm a good person, and I've been working hard ever since I became a disciple of my master. I have the ability to protect myself now, so I'll be fine. Hurry up, or else I won't be able to leave even if one of my brothers come back." She said anxiously. Her two brothers were sparring, and she didn't know what they were doing. If they came back later, how was she going to leave? She still wanted to see her mother. She promised that she would come back as soon as she saw her mother. Seeing her insistence, the nine-tailed spirit fox felt helpless. She could only say, "All right then, let's go outside. There are array formations and barriers in this cave. I can't teleport out with my ability." Chapter 48-75. The nine-tailed spirit fox looked around and nodded. It walked forward and couldn't help but ask, "Have you really decided to leave? What if I teleport to another place?" Its strength was pulled down because its master's strength was too low. Moreover, it hadn't tried its teleportation ability for a long time, so it was really a little flustered. I've decided. I've already left a message for my brothers. I told them not to worry. I'll be back soon. As she spoke, she was worried that her two brothers would suddenly return. So she said, "Hurry up." Seeing this, the nine-tailed spirit fox had no choice but to come to her side and said, "Hold my tail." Okay. Ur's little face was filled with excitement. She quickly grabbed its tail, and in the next moment, a ray of light surged out from its body. On the other side, Hao and Mu Chun were in their master's cave residence. They were kneeling in front of him and begging, "Master, we really want to see Mother." Pleased, before they could finish speaking, they saw their master, who was drinking tea, frown. He put down a teacup in his hand and rushed out. Seeing this, the two looked at each other and quickly got up to follow him. When they came outside, they happened to see a ray of light fly out of the boundary of their cloud, sky, mountain, and disappear into the sky. Seeing this scene, their faces changed. They thought of their sister at the same time. They thought that someone had sneaked in a cloud sky mountain and kidnapped their sister. "No need to go," Emperor Qing said. He clasped his hands behind his back and looked at the ray of light that disappeared in the sky. He said, "That's the aura of the ancient divine beast, nine-tailed spirit fox. That girl should have let the nine-tailed spirit fox take her out. She's really lawless. She doesn't even listen to my words." His brows were still knitted, and his face was slightly gloomy. He seemed to be somewhat unhappy. "Master, then she?" Hao couldn't help but ask. However, seeing their master's gloomy face, the words that were about to come out of his mouth stopped. Secretly left. It seemed that she had angered their master. They had been by their master's side for so long, but they had never seen their master's face so ugly. After thinking for a while, still opened his mouth and said, "Master, let's go and find you." "Find her?" Emperor Qing looked at him and asked, "Do you know where she went? How do you know that the nine-tailed spirit fox will definitely send her to Fengjiu?" Hao was taken aback. Just as he was about to ask what he meant, Mu Chun had already asked, "Master, are you saying that the nine-tailed His eyes, Emperor Qing, and Emperor Qing, Emperor's fathers and Yu's fathers. The Cyan Supreme Emperor stared at the sky for a long time before he exhaled softly. His furrowed brows relaxed as he walked over to the soft couch under the tree and lay down. He said, "The ancient nine-tailed fox god does have the ability to teleport people, but how old is that lass? Was her little bit of strength good enough? Since that girl is not obedient, let her go outside and suffer some hardships so that she won't be obedient and won't listen to discipline in the future." He closed his eyes and didn't pay attention to you or who had left Cloud Sky Mountain. Master. Chapter 4876. Qing Emperor lay quietly with his eyes closed. The two did not get up and just quietly knelt beside him. After a while, he opened his eyes helplessly and looked at them. "Both of you have been calm since you were young. That girl is different from you. She is playful and naughty by nature. Now that she has sneaked away, it's good to let her suffer outside. You two go back and cultivate well. Don't worry about her. I have a strand of spirit on her. If she really encounters danger, I will appear to save her." That girl was his disciple. Even if she was naughty and disobedient, she was still his disciple. Naturally, he would not really be angry with her. But it was necessary to take this opportunity to let her suffer. Hearing this, the two of them finally relaxed. As long as Master said it, they could be at ease. Especially Hao, who saw with his own eyes the scene of Master appearing to save him at the critical moment. Therefore, he respectfully kowtowed to him. "Thank you, Master. Thank you, Master." Mu Chun also kowtowed, then got up and left with his elder brother. After the two left, Qing Emperor stretched out his hand and pinched his fingers. He frowned and then relaxed. His gaze looked at the clouds in the distance. No one knew what he was thinking. The two who left returned to the cave residence. After seeing the note left by they felt helpless. "Elder brother, do you think sister will encounter any danger? From what I see, Shizun wants her to suffer a bit outside. She went to find Mother. Will she not be able to find her?" Mu Chun asked worriedly. "Master's ability is very powerful. Since he said it will be fine, then it will be fine. Don't worry. Let's cultivate well and wait here for sister to come back. Patted him on the shoulder and said. At the same time, who was sent out by the nine-tailed Arctic fox, was somewhat miserable. The nine-tailed Arctic fox's strength had indeed weakened a lot. She wanted to send to the territory of Fungio, but who knew that she was powerless? Where's this place? Why is there no one here? Asked the little white fox beside her. She frowned and was somewhat unhappy. The nine-tailed white fox lowered her head and said softly, I don't know where this is either. I wanted to send Master to the Phoenix Master's territory, but my strength, it was too embarrassed to continue. What was afraid of really happened. It had been worried that this would happen, and sure enough, it really made a mistake. Then can you send me to another place? Asked with expectation. The nine-tailed white fox shook her head. Emperor Qing's spirit formation is too powerful. This time, I have used up quite a bit of my spiritual power. I can no longer send you away. I have to wait for my spiritual power to recover before I can send Master away. It was also very helpless. In the beginning, it didn't want to form a contract with the little doll, but it had no choice but to be caught by its master's mother. It had no choice but to form a contract with the little doll. Even a dignified, ancient mythological beast teleportation ability was so weak. Hearing this, thought for a bit, then said, Okay then, go into the space and meditate. Once you've recovered, you must tell me. All right, Master. You have to be careful here alone, it reminded her worriedly. Chapter 48:77. However, when she stepped on the flying sword and flew up, she saw a boundless forest and a mountain peak that reached into the clouds. She was stunned and could not help but open her small mouth. What kind of forest are you sending me to? Where's this place? She muttered. When she wanted to go up a little more, she felt as if there was a force in the sky. Boundary. She was stunned. She looked at the sky, and her heart was in a daze. There was a boundary here. She could feel it. She wasn't afraid of the barrier's pressure because she possessed the aura of an ancient divine beast. However, it was too conspicuous to stand on a flying sword above the trees, and she didn't know where she was. So, she went down. Her small figure stepped on the flying sword and carefully skimmed through the forest. She flew about 10 meters above the ground. Hence, when she saw the ferocious beasts moving about in the forest below, her eyes widened. Did she fall into a deep forest where ferocious beasts ran rampant? How was she going to leave this forest like this? When she looked from above, she was surrounded by forests and mountains. She did not see any way out. Would she get lost in here and not be able to get out? Thinking of this, she could not help but worry. At this moment, she was vaguely regretting it. If she had not sneaked out, perhaps she would not have ended up in such a place. She kept walking in one direction, until the sky gradually darkened. She did not meet a single person or see a way out. However, she saw many different types of ferocious beasts. Moreover, because she possessed the aura of an ancient divine beast, she would release the aura of an ancient divine beast from within her body to scare off those ferocious beasts when she saw some flying type ferocious beasts flying towards her. So, she didn't encounter any major problems along the way. As the sky darkened, the atmosphere in the forest became more and more eerie. She found a small cave to rest in and lit a small fire to warm herself. What is this? When she sat down in a corner, she felt a handful of fur on the ground. It looked like the fur of a ferocious beast. Just as she was thinking, she heard a roar from outside. Roar! Hearing the beast's roar, she hurriedly walked out. Her hands were clenched tightly as she arrived at the entrance of the cave. She saw a red-blazed lion with an injured hind leg baring its teeth and roaring at her. When she saw the fur around the lion's neck, she couldn't help but look at the fur in her hand. In an instant, she knew that the cave she was in was the lion's territory. Roar! It was a peak-level holy beast. When it saw that its cave was occupied by a human child, it bared its sharp teeth and roared at her. Well, I know this is your cave, but I have nowhere to go. It's too cold outside. Just let me stay here. Ewer said. Her small face wrinkled as she thought for a bit. Then with her immature voice, she tentatively said, How about you also come in, but you can't hurt me? How about it? The holy beast was naturally intelligent and could understand her words. However, it did not agree because this was its territory. Roar! It roared threateningly and walked forward step by step. It opened its mouth and bared its teeth, looking like it was about to pounce forward. Chapter 48:78. While speaking, she released her ancient god beast aura to intimidate this peak holy beast scarlet flame lion in front of her. Just when the lion was preparing to pounce on this human child and eat her as a snack, feeling the ancient god beast aura, its paw couldn't help but paused, and a trace of fear and reverence appeared in its eyes. Looking at the little person in front of it, involuntarily retreated while letting out a low whimper. Seeing it had retreated, you secretly relaxed inside her heart. Then she saw it had retreated to a tree outside the entrance of the cave, and on one side, it was looking at her inside the cave, and on the other side, it was licking the bleeding wound on its hind leg. Seeing the bleeding wound on its leg, even if it licked clean the bleeding wound, not long after, the blood still continued to seep out. Perhaps because it had lost too much blood, that lion also appeared somewhat listless. You was roasting the fire inside the cave and eating the dry food inside her space. While looking at that lion lying listlessly under the tree, she somewhat struggled in her heart. She wanted to let it in, but she also worried that it would attack her. So she didn't let it in, and it was also her who had seized its nest. At this time, a lightning flashed in the pitch-black sky, followed by the sound of thunder, and wind blew, causing the leaves to rustle, and the small bonfire inside the cave also swayed along with the wind. Not long after, fine rain started to fall. At first it was fine rain, but gradually the rain became heavier and heavier, and was also accompanied by rumbling sound of thunder. Because the wind was blowing, she felt somewhat cold, so she took out a small cloak from her space and draped it on her body. Then seeing that lion under the tree was drenched in the rain, she thought for a bit. Then gritting her teeth, she stepped forward and shouted, "Hey, come in." After that scarlet flame lion heard her voice, it looked towards her, thought for a bit, then got up. Step by step it walked towards the cave entrance. Its hind leg was slightly bent, and its pace was also slow. When it arrived at the cave entrance, its eyes had vigilance and also had hesitation. "You can rest over there." You retreated to the side of the cave entrance, then pointed towards the inside corner. Seeing this, the lion limped in and lay down in a corner. However, the wound on its leg was still bleeding. After a while, perhaps because it could not hold on any longer, it lay there motionless as if it was dead. You had been paying attention all along and saw that lion had already fainted and the injury on its hind leg was still bleeding. And from the place where it was lying down, a large pool of blood was oozing out. Thinking for a bit, she took out the medicine and placed it in the bonfire. Along with the wind blowing inside the cave, the smoke was blown inside the cave and was inhaled by that unconscious lion. After a good while, you stepped forward and took out medicine to help stop the bleeding and bandage it. Perhaps because the wound had been bandaged, the lion woke up and opened its eyes. However, it still lay there motionless, only looking at the little human girl who was bandaging its wound. "I took up your space, so I'll help you bandage it as compensation," you said. Then returning back to the side of the bonfire, she said, "You can't move because I used medicine. I was worried that you would attack me, so I can only use medicine on you. But you can rest assured I will not kill you. I will leave after daybreak." Chapter 48:79. Roar. However, what answered her was not that lion lying inside the cave, rather the roar of a beast that came through the night wind and rain. Beast roar. You vigilantly looked towards the outside of the cave. Hearing that sound, she felt that it was not too far from here. And at this time, when that lion lying in the corner heard the roar coming from outside, it immediately struggled to stand up. Merely, it had smelled the medicine of you, and the effect of the medicine was still there. So how could it stand up? Seeing its appearance, and again hearing the roar coming from outside, you immediately asked, Are they looking for you? Don't tell me that the ferocious beasts outside injured you like this. Why do I feel that there is more than one ferocious beast? Roar, roar. It softly roared towards you, and its voice had a trace of anxiousness. Want me to cure you of the medicine? You asked. Roar. It promptly roared. Seeing this, you thought for a bit, then said, Cure is also fine. Merely, you can't attack me. Roar, roar. Thereupon, Ur took out a bottle, then placed it near its nose to let it smell. After a while, she saw it standing up, then quickly rushed out of the cave. Hey, lion, where are you going? Ur shouted. She arrived at the entrance of the cave, but didn't follow it out. So at this time, she saw that there were already several lions that looked exactly the same as that injured lion outside the cave. And among them, there was one whose strength was equally matched with that injured lion. And although other few were holy beasts, but had not reached the peak. Practically without stopping, those 6 or 7 lions fiercely pounced forward to attack that injured lion. Seeing they were fighting, Ur also vigilantly held her dagger and stared at that group of lions that were fighting in the rain. One of the lions was thrown in front of the entrance of the cave, and when it saw Ur standing at the entrance of the cave, its eyes burst with bloodthirsty ferocity. Then it opened its mouth and pounced towards her. Roar, roar. However, just when that lion pounced towards Ur, and when Ur was preparing to fight, that lion which Ur had helped to bandage suddenly pounced towards Ur from behind, then bit that lion which was pouncing towards Ur, and forcibly dragged it back. But because it turned around to bite that lion, it gave the other lions an opportunity. Almost at that moment, several lions pounced on it at the same time, using their sharp claws and teeth at the same time, viciously trying to kill it. Ur blankly watched. She didn't expect that lion would turn around to save her, although she had the ability to save herself and wouldn't let that lion injure her. Seeing the injured lion being attacked and bitten by the lions, with its flesh being torn off and blood flowing out, she was furious. She immediately rushed forward with the dagger in her hand. Scram! The ancient divine beast's aura was unleashed along with the dagger in her hand, and it almost instantly enveloped the few lions. That was the imposing manner of the king among beasts. The ancient god-beast coercion basically wasn't something that they could resist. Almost at that instant, those lions loosened their mouth and let out a low howl. And after being stabbed by the dagger in the hand of Ur, one of them scattered in all directions, then fled towards the dim light of night rain. Chapter 4880. Its body was twitching, and rainwater was falling down, washing the blood-dyed fur on its neck, making its fur stuck together. It was looking at you, with its eyes wide open, and blood was overflowing from its mouth. You, looked at it, and knew that if she didn't save it, it would definitely die. She thought for a bit, then took out a pill from her space, stepped forward and stuffed it into its mouth, while saying, "This is a pill refined by my mother. I will give it to you. See whether it can save your life or not." She took out a medicine to stop bleeding and sprinkled it on its neck, helping it to stop the bleeding. Just when she was about to help it bandage, she saw a powerful aura gushing out from the body of that lion. After eating the pill, shortly afterwards, a ray of light burst out, and at the same time, lightning suddenly streaked across the sky. Ur raised her head to take a look, then hastily hid inside the cave entrance. Just when she retreated to the cave entrance, the heavenly lightning struck down on that tree with a rumbling sound, splashing out a flame. Ur exclaimed in a low voice, then retreated a bit, hiding inside a corner, only to hear 3 lightning strikes continuously struck down from the sky, and each one was more powerful than the previous one. Just when the 3 heavenly lightning strikes struck down, the surroundings recovered its tranquility, and even the rain also stopped. Meanwhile, in the mansion of this place, the people who heard those 3 heavenly lightning strikes were astonished. Then standing on the roof of the immortal mansion, they looked towards the forest where the heavenly lightning strikes had struck down. It has been a long time since a mythological beast was born in our place. So how come there are 3 heavenly lightning strikes today? giving birth to a mythological beast. An old man said while stroking his beard, and his wise and far-sighted gaze seemed to be lost in thought. Old ancestor, the birth of a mythological beast on our immortal island is a very good thing. Wait for me to bring people to look for it, and see what kind of mythological beast was born, then give it to the younger generation of our clan to contract. A middle-aged man said with a smile, while clasping his hands behind his back, looking at that distant forest. Having heard what was said, the old man smiled, and his hand that was stroking his beard paused, then said, "Mythological beast is proud by nature. If we capture it and give it to the younger generation of our clan, first, it will be too easy for the younger generation to obtain it, and second, if we don't personally tame it, it will be somewhat wild." He paused for a bit, then said, "Now, it is also the middle of the night, so forget it, tomorrow. Let the younger generation of our clan go to that forest to look for it by themselves. Also let them gain experience." "But old ancestor, that is a mythological beast. I fear that the younger generation of our clan, right?" The middle-aged man somewhat hesitated. "You can't even tame it?" The old man glanced at him, his aged voice carrying an unknown meaning. Hearing those words, the middle-aged man's heart stirred as he said, "Old ancestor wants Jun Yin to go and make the arrangements." The old man said. He turned around and went down without saying anything else. Then, in that forest at this moment, Yu was surprised with her eyes wide open, looking at that majestic lion who was looking at her with high spirits. Unexpectedly, actually healing. Chapter 4881. It couldn't be that it wanted to eat her, right? Just when she was thinking, that lion bent its front paw and knelt down. "Many thanks for saving me, and also for helping me to advance in a god beast. From now on, I will follow you, master." Master? Yu was dumbfounded and said, "I already have contract beast." "I know, master's life-bonded beast is an ancient divine beast. However, master, my fighting strength is very strong. I can protect you. In this forest, there aren't many divine beasts. With me by your side, master won't encounter any danger." Actually, the most important thing was that she could take out a pill that could help it advance. Moreover, she also had ancient god beast as contract beast, so it knew that the origin of this human little girl before its eyes was definitely extraordinary. Following her, there would only be benefits and no harm. One should know that in this forest, there were countless holy beast-level ferocious beasts, but majority of them stopped at the peak of holy beast and were unable to advance any further. Some even waited for several hundred years, but were still unable to become god beast. Because of this, it had the opportunity to become a god beast, so it naturally wouldn't let go of the opportunity to follow her. Perhaps if it followed her, it might be able to advance into a super god beast in the future. Thinking of this, it looked at her with even more fervent gaze. Hearing these words, Yu thought for a bit, then rolling her round eyes, she said, "I already have life contract beast. If I contract with you, then you can only have master and servant contract." "Okay, master, please quickly contract with me." It stepped forward with a face full of expectation. Encountering this kind of beast that was rushing to be her servant beast, Yu also had a helpless face, but she also wouldn't refuse the benefits that were delivered to her door. Moreover, this lion had eaten a pill of her mother. Thereupon, she imitated the contract method that her mother had taught her before, and a drop of blood flew into the glabella of the lion, forming a master and servant contract. After the contract was formed, the flame in the glabella of the lion also changed shape. After contracting with the lion, Yu beckoned it to enter the cave. Then sitting beside the bonfire to warm her hands, she asked, "Where is this place, How can I leave this place?" Hearing this, the lion was startled and asked in surprise, "Master doesn't know where is this place? Then how did Master come here?" "It was transferred here. It's just that there were some mistakes, and it ended up here," Yu said. Then supporting her little chin with her hand, she asked, "Do you know the way out of here?" Hearing that, The lion revealed a human-like wry smile. "Master, you might not know this, but this is not an ordinary place. It is the forest where a great emperor's floating island is located. The great emperor on this island is the great Emperor Xiaotian. As far as I know, he is an almighty who secludes himself from the world. The people living on this island are the descendants of the great Emperor Xiaotian. Furthermore, there is a spirit formation here, so ordinary people cannot leave or enter this place." It looked at its master in front of it. It really didn't know how she got here. He was able to enter Roaring Sky Emperor's island without making a sound. It seemed that Roaring Sky Emperor and the others didn't know that a human kid had entered their island. Hearing this, couldn't help being dumbfounded. It was actually an immortal island where a great emperor secluded himself from the world. If I enter their territory, will they arrest me? Couldn't help but worry. Chapter 4882. What's the matter? What mental preparation? Wrinkled her little nose and asked. Lion looked at the pitch-black sky outside and said, "Previously when I advanced, 3 heavenly thunders sounded. I am afraid that it alarmed the descendants of Howling Heaven Emperor. They should already know that there is a mythological beast in this forest. Since they know that there is a mythological beast in this forest, they will certainly send people to look for it. So if they come to look for you, it is possible that they will meet me." Now knew the seriousness of the matter. If she was caught, who knows what kind of end would she end up in? In this place, even if she wanted to ask for help, no one would know that she was here. She stood up and walked back and forth in the cave, while muttering, "Let me think, there will be a way." The night gradually deepened. After the rain, the forest was emitting the smell of soil and leaves. The wind blew into the cave, cool and refreshing. Lion was worried that its little master would catch a cold, so it let her sleep beside it and use its body temperature and fur to warm her. Because of the master and servant contract, was relieved. She didn't need to worry that the lion would hurt her. After all, the master and servant contract had a fixed rule that if the master died, the contract beast would not be able to live. After thinking for a long time, was helpless and had no choice but to curl up beside the lion and sleep. The next morning, at the immortal mansion, at this time, large and small children were standing in front of the open space, listening to the instructions of the patriarch. This time you're allowed to enter the forest to gain experience. It is also to enhance your ability to adapt and combat effectiveness. Remember, Xiao family's children, no matter what, you must support each other. You must remember the first rule of the family: never attack your own family. Xiao family's patriarch stood in front of them with his hands clasped behind his back. After listening to everyone's respectful response, he said, "After entering the forest, everything depends on you to support each other. You must ensure your own safety. You're going in to gain experience and enhance your combat effectiveness, not to throw away your life. If you encounter danger that you are unable to cope with, remember to break the jade tablet and teleport back." "Yes," everyone responded again. "Great Elder, take them to the teleportation array." Xiao family's patriarch instructed the old man beside him. "All right." The great elder responded and led everyone to the teleportation array. After they left, Patriarch Xiao looked around and asked with a frown, "Why didn't Junyin come? Did you tell him?" A middle-aged man stepped forward and said, "Yes, Patriarch. The young master left early in the morning." Hearing this, Patriarch Xiao was silent for a while, then sighed. "That child is cold by nature. It's not like there aren't any outstanding disciples in the family, but none of them can catch his eye and become his companion. I originally wanted to let Junheng go with him, but I didn't expect that he would leave first. Clan head, you don't have to worry about the young master. The young master is the most talented disciple of the Xiao clan in the past few hundred years. Even the old ancestor has high praises for him. There won't be any problems if he acts alone," the middle-aged man said. "Go and inform Junheng to look for Junyin in the forest. It's best to move together with him. After all, that is a divine beast." Patriarch Xiao said worriedly. "Yes," the middle-aged man replied. Then he quickly left and headed towards the teleportation array. Chapter 4883. Ha ha. Slow down, don't run too fast. A bell-like laughter came out from Ur's mouth, and along with the breeze, it scattered in the forest. Ur's small figure was lying on the back of the lion, and both of her hands were tightly grabbing the fur on the lion's neck. Her small body was slightly jolted along with the running of the lion, but her small face had a happy and joyful smile. At such a young age, she had already forgotten the uneasiness and worry of last night. At this moment, riding on the back of the lion, she felt the speed of running in the forest as well as the cool breeze brushing against her face, and her whole heart was flying along with it. She had thought about it, and since there was no other way, she could only hide as much as possible and wait for the little fox to recover its exhausted spiritual power, then it could take her away from here. And during this period of time, as long as she hid in this forest and didn't let the descendants of that great Emperor Shao Tian find her, then there would be no problem. The running lion sent her to the edge of the forest near the waterfall and said, "Master, this waterfall is the spring water of the mountain, and there is also a spiritual spring inside. Cultivating and taking a bath in the water is also very beneficial to cultivation. If Master wants to take a bath, don't go below that waterfall because the water flow there is too rapid and the force of the water flow is also too strong. Master is too small to bear it, so it's better to go below and take a bath." Wow, it's really beautiful here. Ur looked at that waterfall. The waterfall rushing down from high above was like a Milky Way flowing down from the sky. When the water flow rushed down from high above, it hit the stones below, splashing a large amount of water. And because the morning sun was shining on the waterfall, there was a 7-colored rainbow, which looked extremely beautiful. Ur promptly jumped down for the back of the lion. She also didn't dare to go directly below that waterfall, because the water flow there was really very strong. The water flow rushing down from high above splashed water everywhere. She knew that if she went forward, she reckoned that she would be washed downstream by that water. Moreover, with her small body, she couldn't stay there. The lion was somewhat worried about her. After all, its master was too small. Especially when it saw that she took off her boots and was about to go into the water, it was so scared that it hastily stepped forward, bit her collar, and dragged her back. "Ah, why are you biting my clothes?" Just when Ur wanted to go into the water, the lion bit her collar and dragged her back. She couldn't help but turn her head and ask. After dragging her away from the water, the lion released its mouth and said, "Master, the water here is deep. You won't be able to stand if you go down. Go there." As it spoke, it bit the corner of her clothes and dragged her to the other side where the water was shallower. Ur smiled, her beautiful eyes curved into crescent moons, and said, "I can swim. I can even hold my breath." Her mother taught them. She and her 2 brothers knew how to swim. Her mother said that if they didn't know how to swim, they would drown if they fell into the water, so she taught them how to swim. "The water here is too shallow. It's not fun." Ur looked at the place where the lion had dragged her. That was a small place with stones all around, and the water in the middle was only up to her knees. Chapter 4884. There wasn't even half a person in this deep mountain forest, plus Ur was still young, so seeing Lion was guarding at one side, she immediately took off her clothes and jumped into the water. Hearing the sound of water splashing from behind, Lion worriedly turned its head to take a look. Seeing little Master flopping in the water with a happy smile on her face, Lion finally felt relieved. It seems that little Master really knew how to swim. Like this, Lion didn't need to worry about little Master and only needed to pay attention to the movements of the surroundings. Ur soaked in the water, and the cool and refreshing water made her feel comfortable all over. She laid on her back in the water, head leaning against a stone, and both of her feet flopped in the water while giggling. "Master, the water in the mountain is cold. Don't soak for too long. Quickly get up." Lion turned its head to look at her in the water and said, "I'll soak for a while. I still haven't washed my hair." Ur said, then her whole body sank into the water, while untying her tied hair and washing it in the water. Lion was paying attention to the surroundings while looking at her in the water. Suddenly, it fiercely turned its head to look and immediately said, "Master, quickly get up. Someone is coming." Ur came out from the water, and the hair on her head was scattered, sticking to her face, making her unable to see the front for a moment. She promptly used her hand to push aside the hair, and looking towards the woods, she faintly saw a figure flying over on a sword. So she promptly shouted, "Quickly, quickly enter the space." With a thought, she immediately received it into the space, and just when she was about to get up and look for a place to hide, she saw that figure had already come out from the woods. She immediately jumped in fright, then promptly restrained her aura and sank into the water. Xiao Junyan indifferently looked all around, and his handsome eyebrows slightly wrinkled. Just a moment ago, he clearly felt the aura of God Beast here, but how come it disappeared here? He stood there without moving, rather carefully used his divine sense to scan all around, but still didn't find anything. Looking towards that waterfall, he saw the sound of the water rushing down was vast, and water vapor pervaded the surroundings. Under the collision of sunlight and water vapor, a rainbow stretched across that waterfall. Thus, he walked over, and seeing that the water was clear and clean, he squatted down and cupped a handful of water to wash his face. About 2 meters upstream from him, Ur, who was holding her breath in the water, was somewhat unable to hold it in any longer. So she quietly floated up and, facing upwards, took a deep breath, and then quietly sank down again. With the sound of the waterfall as a cover, Xiao Junyan, who was 2 meters downstream, didn't notice it. After washing his face, he took off his shirt, loosened his belt, and took off his boots. Wearing only his underwear, he walked barefoot to the rock where the waterfall was crashing down and sat down cross-legged. There, he circulated his spirit energy and began to cultivate. The impact of the waterfall, as well as the cold water flow, was a very good place for him to cultivate frost arts. Along with the circulation of the spiritual power in his body, the aura in his meridians also followed suit. His divine sense was released, and his 5 senses and 6 senses became clearer. Chapter 4885. Even though the sound was extremely soft, and was also covered by the sound of the waterfall, but for Xiao Junyan, who had released his 5 senses and 6 spirits under the waterfall, he was nevertheless able to perceive an aura. Almost at that instant, he opened his sharp eyes, turned around, and attacked towards the place where the aura was coming from. Really was too cold. Ur was preparing to quietly leave the water, but who would have thought that just when her upper body crawled out of the water and was preparing to hide behind a rock, she felt a swift and fierce aura coming towards her, and the speed was so fast that she basically didn't have the chance to react. She cried out in surprise as she felt a hand grab her leg. Then, her whole body swayed in front of her eyes as she was lifted out of the water, creating a huge splash. Xiao Junyan expressionlessly looked at the thing he had grabbed from the water, and the corner of his mouth twitched without leaving a trace. This completely naked thing was a little doll. Ur was also stunned, really stunned, because she was lifted up by one leg, and her whole body was hanging upside down while dripping water. Her pair of beautiful eyes opened wide as she looked at the youth who was grabbing her leg and was currently frowning while sizing up her naked body. A mournful scream came out from Ur's mouth, and almost at the same time she screamed, her other leg ferociously kicked towards the handsome face of that youth. Xiao Junyan also didn't expect that this silly little girl would suddenly shriek. Moreover, she even kicked towards his face. It was precisely because he was caught off guard that his handsome face that angered both man and God received a kick from Ur. He only felt that slippery little leg that he was grabbing twisted, and the little girl who was originally being held upside down by him spun around and fell to the ground, retreating several meters. Shortly after, a piece of clothing was carelessly put on by her. Ur's beautiful eyes were filled with grievances, and after putting on the clothing, she sat down with tears in her eyes, and with a pitiful and angry appearance, she glared at that youth. Woo, she was miserable. She suffered a loss. Mother said that a girl's body shouldn't be seen by a boy, but she was lifted up from the water by that person and even carefully sizing her up, and she was seen completely naked. Xiao Junyan touched his face, only to feel that this kick was somewhat painful, and his tongue also tasted a trace of blood. It could be seen that his mouth was bleeding. He looked at the little doll who was angrily glaring at him, and frowning, he walked forward and asked, "Which family's child are you from? Why did you come here?" In his view, their place was covered with enchantments and arrays, so outsiders couldn't enter their celestial island, and the child who appeared on this island was naturally the child of their Xiao family. Only, he had never come into contact with the Xiao family's family, so he naturally didn't know which family's child. Therefore, when he thought of the training that the clan had arranged for the clan's disciples, he thought that this little girl must have sneaked out to play. However, she was too bold. A 5 to 6-year-old girl actually dared to follow him into such a place. You naturally didn't answer him, but glared at him with anger and grievance. She was thinking if father, mother, and masters knew that she was seen completely naked by this youth, how angry would they be? Chapter 4886. Seeing that she didn't react, he couldn't help but frown and said, "Xiao family's young master." Seeing that she didn't react to his words, his frown deepened. Sizing up the little girl, he asked, "Which family child are you? Who brought you in? Don't you know that Xiao family's rules say that no one below the age of 10 can enter this forest?" When Yu saw that he didn't say anything to the point for a long time, and instead said something about him being the young master of Xiao clan and so on, she immediately stood up and angrily roared at him. "You have seen my naked body. You have to apologize to me." Hearing her words, Xiao Junyan glanced at her and said indifferently, "Little doll, if you've seen it naked, then you've seen it naked. What's the matter?" Saying that, he took out clothes from his space and put them on while drying the traces of water on his body with his inner breath. Walking forward, seeing that the little doll behind him didn't follow, he stopped and turned around to look at her and said, "Still not following? In this kind of place, she wouldn't be able to survive a night here. Not following." Yu snorted and turned her face away. After putting on her clothes, she walked in the opposite direction. Who would have thought that before she could take a few steps, she was grabbed by the collar and lifted up. Let go of me. Let me down." She used all her strength to kick, and seeing that he was not letting go of her collar, she immediately grabbed his hand and bit it. "Hiss!" Xiao Junyan hissed in pain and loosened his hand, putting the little doll on the ground. Looking at his wrist, he saw that there was a bite mark on it, and blood was seeping out. He frowned and stared at the little doll on the ground who was about to run away. At once, he lifted her up and held her under his arm while coldly shouting, "Don't move. If you move again, I'll knock you out and carry you away." Yu glared at him with her pair of eyes as if a small beast, and seeing him placing his hand on her head, her originally wet hair was dried by him, and along with the surge of his aura, her originally somewhat cold body also gradually warmed up. "Where's your transportation jade tablet?" Xiao Junyan asked in a cold voice. She looked left and right, but did not find any teleportation jade tokens on the little child. If it wasn't for the fact that this was a child of his Xiao family, with his personality, he wouldn't have bothered with this troublesome child. "No," Yu unhappily said. Then she turned her head and didn't look at him. Xiao Junyan frowned, thinking that if this child had secretly followed them in, naturally no one would have given her a life-saving teleportation token. She fell silent for a moment, then asked, "Are you the only one in the vicinity? Who brought you in?" Yu's gaze turned, and struggling to get down from his arm, she stood in front of him and made a face, then angrily said, "Other than me, aren't you a human?" Xiao Junyan looked at her and did not say anything for a while, as if she was thinking about something. Yu saw he didn't speak and kept staring at her, so she also stared at him, carefully sizing him up. This person looked to be about 15 or 16 years old, although she had seen many good-looking people, but she couldn't deny that this person was really quite good-looking. He was wearing a black robe, and the sleeves and collar were embroidered with cloud patterns. A jade belt was tied around his waist, and his cold face was very intimidating. However, these were nothing to her, so naturally she wouldn't be frightened by him. Chapter 4887. Hearing his words, Yu'er's gaze turned, and a trace of craftiness flashed past her eyes. Did this person think that she was a member of the Xiao family? Thinking of this, she blinked and recalled that he had said that he was called Xiao Junyan and was the young master of the Xiao family. Thus, she quickly made a decision in her heart. Still not walking? Waiting to be fed to the beasts. Xiao Junyan walked forward, and seeing that she was still standing there, he called out to her. Yu'er immediately followed his footsteps, neither hurriedly nor slowly following beside him. Merely, her small body's pace was also small, so she gradually fell behind him, pulling apart some distance from him. The weeds in the forest were already half a person's height, so they could easily cover her small body. As Xiao Junyan walked, he saw that the little thing had stopped breathing. He turned back to take a look and saw that the little thing was struggling to push aside the weeds and walk towards him. Seeing this, he stood there without moving. After a while, when she came to his side, he reached out and scooped her up with one hand and carried her up with large strides. I can run by myself. I don't need you to carry me. Yu'er shouted. She didn't want this person to carry her. Your legs are short, Xiao Junyan said coldly. His footsteps shifted and his figure flitted through the forest. When he encountered the beasts in the forest, he directly leaped off the ground to avoid them. After carrying the little thing with one hand for a distance, he found that this little doll was still a little heavy. After walking for a distance, the hand carrying her was actually slightly sore. He couldn't help but admit that this little doll was a fat doll. Even if her body was small, her body was soft and full of meat. With someone carrying her, she didn't need to walk, and you also didn't shout for him to put her down. Instead, she let him carry her with a clear conscience. Rolling her eyes, she shouted, I'm hungry. Hearing this, Xiao Junyan paused and found a place to stop. Putting the child in his arms aside, he took out the seclusion grain pill from his space. Eat it. He handed it to her. Yu'er looked at it and her eyes widened. I don't eat this. It's not delicious. I want to eat meat. She didn't want to eat the seclusion grain pill. Moreover, that seclusion grain pill was not as good as the one made by her mother. She didn't want to eat it. Eat it. He pushed it forward and looked like he was going to stuff it into her mouth. No, I don't want to take this medicine, she shouted as she backed away. Xiao Junyan, who had never taken care of a child before, saw the little thing staring at him warily with a pair of eyes, as if she was afraid that he would stuff the seclusion grain pill in his hand into her mouth. He could not help but frown as his eyes darkened. Pausing for a moment, he put away the seclusion grain pill and said, Wait for me on the tree. I'll go get some meat for you. As expected, children were troublesome. Hearing these words, Yu'er didn't resist. Walking forward, Yu'er let him carry her up the tree and found a place to put her down. Sit tight and hold on to the branch here. Don't fall. I'll be back in a while, he said coldly. I know, Yu'er replied. After watching him fly away, she took out a spirit fruit from her space and ate it. Her eyes darted around, and no one knew what she was thinking. On the other side, Xiao Junyan was worried about the little thing that had been left on the tree. Hence, after catching a gray feathered spirit chicken, she came back. Seeing the little thing sitting obediently on the tree, she went forward to bring the little thing down. Then, she picked up some branches from his surroundings and roasted the spirit chicken. Chapter 4888. Hearing this, Yu'er's little hand that was holding the chicken drumstick paused. Let someone take her back? Go back to where? Xiao family? If she went to Xiao family, wouldn't she be exposed? As she chewed on the chicken drumstick, her eyes rolled around. Xiao Junyan looked at the little girl who was eating the chicken drumstick with both hands. In a short while, only the chicken bone was left of the drumstick in her hands. She looked at him with a fat face and stretched out her hand again. Seeing this, he tore off another chicken drumstick for her and tore off a wing for himself to eat. After the two of them finished eating the roasted chicken, Xiao Junyan carried her to a spring to wash her face and hands. At this time, rustling sounds came from the forest. Xiao Junyan raised his head and looked over. A thick and strong, ferocious beast was walking out from the forest. Wherever it passed, the weeds were trampled flat. Roar! That ferocious beast discovered the two people at the spring and immediately roared and pounced towards the two people. "Be careful!" Xiao Junyan shouted and carried Yu up with one hand. Tiptoeing, he leaped off the ground with her and avoided the attack of that ferocious beast. Kacha! The big tree that was big enough for a person to hug broke and fell down with a kacha sound. That ferocious beast pounced on empty air and suddenly turned around and pounced towards the two people. Its speed was so fast that it was like a flash of light. Because Xiao Junyan was carrying Yu, he didn't directly meet it head-on. Instead, he carried her and ran through the forest to avoid it. Yu, who was being carried, was also worried that he wouldn't be able to hold her steadily and let her fall to the ground. Therefore, her pair of little hands tightly grabbed onto his lapel and her little chubby legs tightly clamped onto his waist. Xiao Junyan's expression was somewhat ugly. It wasn't because he was being chased by that ferocious beast that was at the peak of the Saint Beast level. Rather, it was because this chubby baby in his arms was tightly clinging onto him like an octopus, causing his running speed to become somewhat slow. Roar! The roar of the beast resounded in the forest, accompanied by the vibration of that ferocious beast running. In the air, because of the roar of that ferocious beast, an oppressive airflow also spread out. She did not know if it was an illusion, but Xiao Junyan felt that after the ferocious beast's roar fell, there were sounds of ferocious beasts galloping in the distance. Yu, who was lying on his bosom, looked all around, and with her beautiful big eyes flashing, she said, "There are many ferocious beasts coming from all around. They are called by the ferocious beasts behind." Yu said. Then, patting his shoulder with her little hand, she curiously asked, "Why didn't you kill that ferocious beast? Why did they run away when they saw that ferocious beast?" "Don't tell me you can't beat it. That's because you were there," Xiao Junyan said coldly. If it weren't for the fact that he was concerned about this little thing, why would he need to turn around and run away? If they were to fight, they naturally wouldn't be able to take care of this little fellow. No matter how much he thought it was troublesome, he couldn't just leave such a young child of the Xiao family behind, right? Yu was startled. Then, blinking her eyes, she crisply said, "Just put me down. I will take care of myself." As soon as her voice fell, the person who was galloping stopped abruptly. Because of the sudden stop, she was almost thrown out. Fortunately, she was tightly holding on to his lapel, so she was not thrown out. "Now, even if you don't want to come down, you have no choice," Xiao Junyan said, as his gaze swept over the surroundings. Raising his chi, he brought her to the tallest and largest tree nearby. Chapter 4889. Yu looked down from the tree. He had placed her high up, and when she looked down, she could only vaguely see Xiao Junyan below holding a sword in his hand as he attacked the ferocious beasts that were pouncing forward. She had originally thought that this person's strength was very weak. However, after seeing him unleash his full strength, she knew that this person was not weak, but very strong. She reckoned that his skills and cultivation were above her elder brother's. Well, this person was a few years older than her elder brother, so it was normal for him to be more powerful than her elder brother. But who knew that her two elder brothers would not be as powerful as him in the future? The screams and roars of the ferocious beasts spread throughout the forest, and the smell of blood also spread throughout the forest along with the wind. Yu, who was sitting on the tree, saw that Xiao Junyan below was more than enough to deal with those ferocious beasts, and she immediately retracted her aura and quietly left this place. She was not really a child of the Xiao family. If she were to let the people he called to bring her back to the Xiao family, who knew if she would be killed? At least in this forest, there were no ferocious beasts that could hurt her. When the little fox's spiritual power had recovered, perhaps it could bring her out of this place. She still wanted to see her mother. After Xiao Junyan had dealt with those ferocious beasts, he once again gathered his energy and came up to the tree to carry that little fellow down, only to discover that the little fellow that he had placed on the tree had disappeared, slipped away. He furrowed his brows and scanned his surroundings. How did that little thing slip away without making a sound? Thinking that the little fellow had secretly followed them out, and he had told her that he had already asked the people of the family to come and bring her back, he was afraid that she did not want to be brought back and had slipped away first. Thinking that the little fellow was so small and that this place was filled with unknown dangers, if they had encountered a ferocious beast, he was afraid that the little fellow would be swallowed whole in one bite. At that moment, he flew up on his sword, looking for the figure of that little fellow. After Ur is slipped away from the tree, she walked around the forest. She had stayed here for a few days, and when she encountered ferocious beasts, she did not need to fight at all. As long as she released the might of the ancient divine beast, those ferocious beasts would have to avoid her. While humming an unknown tune, he swung a tree branch that he had picked up from somewhere and walked briskly. Ever since she had left that large tree, she had used a sweeping pace. In just a short while, the distance she had opened up was already not short. Hence, she did not have to worry about being caught back by Xiao Junyan. She came to a tree and stopped to rest. She looked left and right, then jumped onto the tree and sat down. She took out fruits from her space and ate them while swinging her dangling legs. The branches and leaves on the tree were lush, and her figure was small. If she sat on the tree and didn't speak and held her breath, it would be difficult to find her. After eating a fruit, Yura yawned, seeing the sun was burning fiercely above her head, and this place was covered by tree leaves, and the cool breeze was very comfortable. Immediately, she found a comfortable position on the tree and slept. She didn't know how much time had passed, but the sounds of fighting in the forest woke her up. She opened her eyes and saw a 14 or 15-year-old boy being attacked by 2 sacred beast-level lions. His body was covered in wounds, but he was still fighting with his teeth bared. Chapter 4890. She recognized that those few lions were precisely those lions that had attacked that lion in her space a few days ago. She had heard from that Xiao Junyan that the people who came in should have that transfer jade tablet on their waist. Her gaze sized up that injured youngster who was gasping for breath, but she didn't see anything like a jade tablet. Roar! The lion was very patient with this prey that had reached its mouth. While playing with him, it didn't pounce on him and bite him to death, rather looked at him struggling. Xiao Juanheng pursed her lips and retreated. After a long battle, her physical strength was gradually declining, and adding on the injuries on her body, her steps were somewhat unstable. And as it happened, that transfer jade tablet that could save his life was torn off by the lion in the previous battle, and she didn't know where it was thrown away. Yura was currently looking at the battle in front of her. She saw that youngster was wearing a crescent moon robe, and his appearance was also very outstanding. Merely his strength seemed a bit weak. And, at least compared to that Xiao Junyan she had met before, he was a lot weaker. But looking at the two, there should only be a difference of 1 or 2 years. So how could there be such a big difference in strength? Just when she was thinking whether she should go down to help save him or not, she heard an extremely subtle hissing sound, and suddenly felt a slight chill on her neck. She instinctively stretched out her hand to grab it. A finger-sized cyan-colored poisonous snake was tightly pinched by her hand, and the snake's tail was tightly coiled around her arm, and it was spitting out its tongue towards her while issuing hissing sound. "Want to bite me?" Yura looked at that cyan-colored poisonous snake with a smile, and said in a soft and cute voice, "I, however, hold grudges very well." While speaking, her hand took out a dagger and directly stabbed towards the 7 inches of the snake. Hiss! That snake hissed, and because of that dagger stabbing and twisting, its entire body was cut into 2 parts. One part fell on the ground, and the other part of the snake's head was still in Yura's hand. My snake's gallbladder." Seeing the snake's body fell down, Yura promptly jumped down and prepared to gather the gallbladder of that poisonous snake. Who would have thought that when she jumped down, her whole body just happened to sit on the back of a lion that was staring at that human prey? With such a small person suddenly falling from the tree, not to mention the lion that was suddenly ridden on top of its head by a human. Even the young man who was panting while leaning against the tree was stunned for a moment, especially when he saw that the thing that had fallen was none other than a little girl of 5 or 6 years old. His expression changed. "Come down quickly. Get behind me." He hurriedly shouted and wanted to go forward to pull the little girl who was riding on the lion's back. However, a lion suddenly rushed out and collided with him, blocking his movements and forcing him to turn to attack the lion. Roar! At this time, the other lion roared and pounced at the human child sitting on the lion's back. "Be careful!" Xiao Jianheng gritted her teeth. She wanted to go up and save him, but she couldn't free herself. Yu looked at that lion pouncing towards her, and suddenly, a malicious smile appeared on her face. Then she threw the snake head she was tightly pinching towards that lion's mouth. Chapter 4891. After that lion roared, it instinctively bit that thing in its mouth. At the same time that snake blood splashed out, that lion also twitched and fell down. Bang! Its body heavily fell to the ground, startling that youngster and also startling those lions. Roar! The other lions roared towards Yu, staring at that little human who was riding on the lion's back. Suddenly, they discovered that this little human seemed somewhat familiar. Yu was thrown down from the lion's back. When she fell to the ground, she somersaulted in the air and stably landed on the ground. And when that lion that had thrown her down was preparing to pounce forward and bite this human child to death, that pair of lions' eyes fiercely shrunk, and a trace of alarm appeared in its eyes. With a low howl, it rapidly retreated, and within a few breaths of time, it disappeared without a trace. It, however, recognized that this human child had the aura of an ancient divine beast. Even if they wanted to provoke someone, they would not dare to provoke this kind of human. The youngster was gasping for breath, somewhat startled and puzzled as he looked at those lions that had suddenly all run away. He also could not figure out what was going on. However, seeing that little girl actually ran under a tree and picked up a cyan-colored snake's body. Using a dagger, she cut open the snake body and took out a cyan-colored snake's gallbladder from inside. He was even more startled. "Are you all right?" He walked forward and arrived at the little girl's side. Seeing that her face was unfamiliar, she also did not seem like a child of the clan that he had seen before. But thinking about it, the clan had a large population. Moreover, she was such a small child, so it was normal that he had not seen her before. Moreover, in this place, other than the children of their clan, how could a child from other places appear here? Therefore, naturally, he also classified this little girl as a child of their Shao clan. After Yu put away the snake's gallbladder, she looked at the youngster in front of her. Pointing at the injuries on his body, she said, "The one who is in trouble is you. You are bleeding. So bad." She was so small, but she was also not injured and bleeding. "That's right. I am injured." Xiao Jianheng lightly exhaled and sat down with her back leaning against a large tree. Taking out medicine, she sprinkled it on the wound and used a simple gauze to bandage it. Bandaging it herself, she could only use her mouth to bite it. Thus, she directly tied it into a tight knot. "Do you want me to help you?" Yu blinked her pure eyes and asked. She watched as he poured the medicine on his back. More than half of the medicine had spilled onto the ground. "All right." He handed the bottle to her and looked at her, asking, "Who brought you in? Don't you know that a child as young as you can't come in here?" "Why? I'm not injured," Yu said. After she sprinkled the medicine, she dressed him up in a decent manner. Finally, she tied a beautiful bow. There are too many ferocious beasts in this forest, and many of them are very strong. Even I was injured, let alone a young child like you. He leaned against the tree and rested. While looking around vigilantly, he said doubtfully, "I don't know why those lions ran away just now." Yu looked at him with a beaming smile and said, "Although I am small, but ferocious beasts don't eat me. Wait a moment, I'll send a message back and ask my father to send someone to pick you up." As he spoke, he took out the communication jade tablet. Chapter 4892. As soon as Yu Er's voice fell, she waved her hand at him and walked towards the forest with her short legs. Seeing this, Xiao Juanheng was startled. Not bothering to send a message, he quickly followed her. Wait a moment. It's too dangerous for a child like you here. You can't run around. Even if he hadn't seen her before, she was still a child of their Xiao family. Naturally, he couldn't let her encounter any danger here. As for the lions that suddenly ran away earlier, he never thought that it would be related to this little girl. Yu took out a fruit and ate it as she walked. She glanced back at him, and seeing him catch up with her in 2 or 3 steps, she wrinkled her nose and said, "Don't follow me. I'm very safe on my own. Who is your father? Which branch is he from? How did you sneak in here? Who did you come in with? I see that you don't have a transmission jade tablet on you. Who brought you in?" He came to her side and asked while staring at this little girl who didn't even reach his waist. Seeing that there wasn't the slightest bit of fear on her face, and instead a radiant appearance, he couldn't help but feel astonished. How come he hadn't seen such a little girl in the family before? Yu Er's eyes turned. Eating the fruit, she said with a smile. I came with big brother Junyan. Junyan? How is that possible? How could he bring you into this forest? Also, if you came together, why did I only see you and not him? Xiao Juanheng was stunned and asked in astonishment. We were attacked by ferocious beasts in the forest and then got separated. So I also don't know where he is. Yu said, eating the fruit in her hand in 2 or 3 bites. However, Xiao Juanheng saw that she finished eating the fruit in 2 or 3 bites. His eyes flashed and his brows furrowed. With his temperament, it's impossible for him to bring in such a small child without propriety. You're not telling the truth. Also, the fruit you ate was a spiritual fruit, right? Although he wasn't the Xiao family's young master, his father was the current Xiao family's patriarch. He had seen many things, but he had never seen a spiritual fruit like the one she ate. Just by smelling it, he could feel a strong spiritual aura emanating from the fruit. Where did this child come from? Was she really a child of their Xiao family? When he thought of this, his heart skipped a beat, and he became cautious. Since you've come to this forest, then do you know why you entered this forest? Xiao Juanheng asked, her gaze falling on the face of the little one beside her. Having heard what was said, Yu looked at him with a beaming smile and said in a crisp voice, I know, because there's a divine beast here. Want to test her? She was very smart. Furthermore, that divine beast had only managed to advance into a divine beast after eating her mother's pill. How could she possibly not know about this? Seeing that she knew, Xiao Juanheng was surprised. But there was always a trace of indescribable strangeness. Suddenly, he heard the sound of fighting, so he immediately stopped and released his divine sense. The next moment, his complexion changed. Then he stretched out his hand and pulled Yu, who was about to leave, towards another direction. Go save them. Yu was dragged away, and her little face was completely speechless. What kind of people did she meet? Why are all the people from the Xiao clan like this? Chapter 4893. Phew, one of them gasped for breath. His hand was already holding the transferred jade tablet on his waist. Gritting his teeth, he said, I think we can't hold on any longer. If we continue to fight, we will all die here. It's better to crush the transfer jade tablet. The other person was somewhat hesitant. He didn't speak, but his face was filled with unwillingness. Another person gritted his teeth and angrily said, If you want to crush it yourself. It's not easy to come to this forest. If we go back like this, we might be laughed at to death. Moreover, the time we spent here is so short. If we go back now, how will we raise our heads in front of others? Hearing these words, that youth with hesitation and unwillingness also said, That's right. Isn't it still not the final moment? If we really can't, it won't be too late to crush it. Now, even if you want me to crush the transfer jade tablet, I also won't. Moreover, I still want to bring back a gift for my mother from here. Don't forget what the elders said. This is only an experience. Preserving your life is the most important. If you want to court death, I won't accompany you. Saying this, that youth used his strength to crush the transfer jade tablet. In the next moment, his figure disappeared from where he stood. Following his departure, this made the originally injured two people even worse. With one less helper, it was naturally harder to fight against this pack of wolves. Fight! No matter what, I have to pull out a wolf's tooth to send back to my mother. That youth from before gritted his teeth and shouted. Holding his sword, he rushed forward and chopped at one of the wind wolves. You stay here. Don't run around. After seeing the situation over there, Xiao Juanheng's face became very serious. Especially when those two people actually didn't know to crush the transfer jade tablet and wanted to fight with a pack of wolves. His handsome face sunk. After placing the little girl he had dragged over on a tree, he broke off a branch and stuffed it to her, saying, "Cover it. The wolves won't be able to see you." The corner of Er's mouth twitched. Looking at this youth who stuffed a branch into her hand and ran forward, she directly rolled her eyes without giving him any face, expressing her speechlessness at this moment. Holding this branch with leaves in front of her, the pack of wolves won't be able to see her? This youth was quite tall, but why wasn't his brain working well? Moreover, there was a pack of wolves in front of him. There were at least 10 to 20 wind wolves. Among them, that wolf was at the pinnacle of the holy beast level. If he were to run forward like this, wouldn't he be courting death? With just the 3 of them, would they be able to defeat a peak holy beast alpha wolf and a dozen holy beast wind wolves? She sat on the tree and played with the branch in her hand. The 2 of them had teleportation jade tokens hanging on their waists. If they really reached a dead end, the 2 of them would still have a chance to save themselves. However, it was hard to say for the young man who looked okay, but was not very smart. So, was she going to leave? Or should I help them? His little face was full of conflict. She had never encountered this pack of wolves before, and they would not run away like those lions. She was sure that she would not be able to defeat the siege of so many wolves by herself. If she used the ancient aura, would the 3 of them notice it? Just as she was feeling conflicted, Xiao Juanheng had already raised his sword and rushed over. When the 2 youths saw him, their eyes shone with pleasant surprise and hope. Second young master. Chapter 4894. With his help, perhaps they wouldn't even need to crush the transportation jade. Attack the alpha wolf. Xiao Juanheng shouted in a low voice, directly leaping towards the alpha wolf to attack. The best way to make the wolf pack retreat in defeat was to first kill the alpha wolf. As long as the alpha wolf died, these wolves would naturally flee. Okay, the 2 immediately responded. With his addition, they immediately felt their confidence double. Their originally exhausted bodies also surged with a strong fighting spirit at this moment. The 3 joined forces and attacked the alpha wolf. However, their thoughts were good, but the reality was cruel. The Wolf King didn't approach them. Instead, it sat at the back and watched them. When the wind wolves saw that they were attacking the Wolf King, they attacked them even more viciously. Xiao Juanheng was already injured to begin with. In addition, the other 2 also had injuries on their bodies. The 3 of them joined forces, but they were still no match for the attacks of nearly 20 vicious wolves. Not long after, the injuries on their bodies worsened, and the clothes on their bodies were stained with blood. Seeing this, Er's gaze fell on the alpha wolf. She threw away the branch in her hand, and her small figure lightly leapt from the tree towards the alpha wolf. Just when she was about to attack that Wolf King with her dagger, that Wolf King seemed to have discovered her, so it raised its head and coldly glanced at her. After that, it opened its mouth and let out a low howl, as if it was threatening and its sharp wolf fangs were drooling towards Just as was about to pounce down, she suddenly felt a sharp chi blade attack from afar. She promptly stopped her movements and looked towards the direction of the sound. She saw a cold light attack. Upon closer inspection, it was actually a sharp arrow carrying a swift and fierce aura. With extreme speed, it accurately shot towards the alpha wolf. In that instant, the fur on the alpha wolf's body stood on end because it sensed the approaching danger. It fiercely leapt, pouncing towards the small figure sitting on the tree. On one hand, it wanted to avoid the incoming arrow. On the other hand, it wanted to eat this human child whose entire body emitted pure spiritual energy. Careful! Xiao Juanheng was surrounded by several wind wolves. When she saw the alpha wolf pounce towards the little girl, her expression could not help but change, and she cried out in alarm. However, even though he wanted to save her, he couldn't spare the time to do so. Unexpectedly, at that moment, he saw the little girl wave the dagger in her hand and attack the Wolf King. The sharpness of the blade caused him to be involuntarily stunned. When the Wolf King saw the dagger coming at it, it immediately dodged and landed on a nearby tree branch. Exerting force with its hind legs, it fiercely pounced at the prey it had set its eyes on. It was inconvenient for Yu to stretch her hands and feet on the tree, so seeing that Wolf King pouncing towards her to bite her, she couldn't help but angrily said, "Want to eat me? See if I don't pull out your teeth." At the same time, she took a wrong step. As the Wolf King pounced on her, she took a step back. It looked like she couldn't stand still and was about to fall, but in fact, she wanted to avoid it and land on the ground to fight again. Unexpectedly, just as she jumped down from the tree, a strange aura suddenly came towards her. She almost instinctively waved the dagger in her hand to attack that aura, but she didn't expect to hear a familiar voice. "It's me." Chapter 4895. When Yu heard that voice, she was stunned for a moment. In that moment of distraction, the dagger in her hand was snatched away, and at the same time, she was held in the arms of the person who had come. Xiao Junyan carried the chubby child with one hand and snatched the dagger from her hand with the other. Then, he directly attacked the Wolf King that was pouncing over again. Unexpectedly, when he held the dagger and attacked, the sharpness of the dagger was unusual. Xiao, Wu, the sharp chi of the blade cut through the air. That Wolf King that was pouncing over probably did not expect Xiao Junyan's attack to be so fast. Unable to dodge in time, its neck was directly struck by the blade. At the same time, when blood splashed out, a wolf howl also resounded, and the body of that Wolf King also fiercely fell down. With a bang, it fell to the ground, and blood gushed out from its neck, dyeing the fur on its body red. Its body twitched, and it struggled to stand up. But unexpectedly, Xiao Junyan, who was carrying Yu on the ground, once again pounced on it with her blade. Xiao, Wu, the dagger pierced through. That Wolf King's howl was already weak. Its body stiffened, and in the next moment, it fell straight to the ground, no longer breathing. Following the death of this Wolf King, the remaining 11 or 12 wind wolves howled and scattered in all directions, quickly escaping. At this time, Xiao Juanheng and the two youths were already panting as they half knelt down with their swords. Sweat poured down their bodies like rain. Their black hair stuck to their cheeks due to the sweat, blood staining their robes red. Wounds were so deep that bones could be seen, and some had their robes torn apart by the wolf claws. No matter how one looked at it, they were in a sorry state. But at this time, the three of them were looking at the black-robed youth who had suddenly appeared with shining eyes. Xiao Junyan, their Xiao family's young master, because his arrival had resolved their danger, and also indirectly saved their lives. Greetings to young master. Many thanks to young master for saving us. The two youths who had been half kneeling with their swords immediately knelt down, cupping their fists and bowing to him. From their words, it was clear that they were respectful. Xiao Juanheng, on the other hand, paused for a moment before standing up straight. She nodded towards him and said, "Fortunately, you came." As she spoke, her gaze fell on the little girl in his embrace, and a trace of astonishment flashed through her eyes. Everyone in the Xiao family knew that no one was allowed to get within 3 steps of Xiao Junyan, much less be held in his arms. Then, what was the matter with this little girl? Did he really bring her in? Yu, who was pressed into his bosom, raised her head. Seeing that the Wolf King was already dead, the danger had also been removed. But this Xiao Junyan was still holding on her dagger and not returning it. She immediately shouted, "Return my dagger to me." Xiao Junyan only nodded her head towards Xiao Juanheng and did not pay any attention to the two kneeling youths. Instead, she turned her gaze towards the chubby baby in her arms. Yes, although this little thing was no longer a doll, in his eyes it was still a chubby, meaty doll. Especially now that it was staring at him, it was even more interesting to look at. In the entire Shao clan, no one dared to treat him like this. The dagger is mine. Return it to me. Yu glared at him with her beautiful eyes, like a little beast staring at him, her hand reaching out, wanting to snatch the dagger back. Unexpectedly, with a turn of his hand, Shao Junyan kept the dagger. It's too sharp. It's not something you can play with. Chapter 4896. Yu glared at him angrily. Watching as her dagger was confiscated, her heart clenched in anger. Seeing this, Shao Junheng asked, Junyan, this child said that you brought her in? Which branch does she belong to? Was it really you who brought her in? Hearing this, Yuer's little head shrank back. It's over. She's exposed this time. Shao Junyan looked at the little thing who had shrunk back and did not speak, the corners of her lips curling up slightly. Even if it was very small, it still made Shao Junheng feel extremely surprised. Did he see wrongly? Junyan smiled. Her gaze involuntarily fell on the little girl in his arms. Was it because of this child? She followed me here, Shao Junyan said, hugging the chubby baby in her arms. She felt that her body was soft and fluffy, very comfortable to hug. Hence, she did not let go, but continued to hug her, looking at the two people in front of her, her face cold as she reprimanded them. Are the teleportation jade tokens at your waist just for decoration? You want to fight against the wolf pack with just the two of you? If I had not appeared, you would already be food in the wolf's mouth. The two youths were being reprimanded, not daring to speak, only lowering their heads. What are you standing there for? Hurry up and clean up the battlefield. Shao Junyan frowned and said coldly, Yes. The two of them hurriedly responded, not caring about the injuries on their bodies, but cleaning up the scene first. They dug out the crystal cores of the wind wolves, and finally, the two of them pulled out the Wolf King's wolf teeth. Only, they did not dare to keep it for themselves. After all, they were not the ones who killed the Wolf King, so they walked forward and handed the things to Shao Junyan. Young master, these things are for you. As Shao Junyan spoke, she did not even look at those things. Instead, she stared at the little thing in her arms. Seeing that she was frowning, not knowing what she was thinking about, Shao Junyan pinched her chubby little face and lifted her head up. What are you thinking about? He unexpectedly found that this little thing's face was very nice to pinch. Soft, smooth, and chubby, he could not bear to let go. Yu glared, slapping away his hand that was pinching her face, shouting, Don't touch me. Impudent. Don't be rude to young master. When the two youths saw that the little girl actually dared to shout at Shao Junyan, their faces changed and they hurriedly reprimanded her. But unexpectedly, the moment they said those words, their young lord shot a cold glare at them from the other side, a look that said that he disdained them for meddling in other people's business, causing them to be at a loss. Let's first bandage the wounds on your body, Shao Junheng said, indicating for the two to go to the side and bandage their wounds. When the two youths heard his words, they immediately responded and hurriedly retreated to the side to treat their wounds. Put me down, Yu shouted, struggling to get down from his bosom. Unexpectedly, Shao Junyan continued to hug her tightly with one hand, her handsome face cold and serious as she said, You're still young. It's safer for me to hug you. If you return the dagger to me, I can guarantee my safety. Yu said, I'll return it to you. You'll run away again later, he said expressionlessly as he carried her to the side. The heart of Yu jumped, but blinking her pair of beautiful eyes, she said without any change in expression, What slip away? When did I slip away? Shao Junyan looked at her quietly, and after a long time, he asked, What's your name? Yu blinked, not saying a word. Chapter 4897. Yu rolled her eyes, and when she was about to speak, she heard his voice. Tell me your real name. Don't try to fool me. I am a branch descendant of Shao family. I came here because I wanted to play, and there are barriers and arrays here. Other than people of Shao family, could it be that outsiders can enter? Yu said with a smile. Hearing this, he frowned and stared at her, saying, You are not. You haven't seen me. How do you know that I am not? There are so many children of Xiao family's branch. Have you seen them all? Yu snorted and said, That dagger of yours is not an ordinary thing. It is not something of Xiao family. Xiao Junyan looked at the little fox-like chubby baby in his embrace and said coldly, You better tell the truth. Otherwise, when you return to Xiao family, no one can save you. Yu rolled her eyes and said, Give me back the dagger, and I will tell you. Xiao Junyan stared at her, but did not take out the dagger. Instead said, It's okay if you don't say, then just stay by my side. Seeing this person's temper, Yu really wanted to punch his eyes with her little fist, but she had the heart, but she did not have the guts. Who asked her to be in other people's territory? Junyan, my father asked me to help you find that mythological beast. Did you meet it? Or do you have any clues? Xiao Juanheng, who had finished treating the wound, walked over, and seeing the two staring at each other, he could not help but feel strange. No, Xiao Junyan said, holding the chubby baby in his embrace with one hand, and said to him, Did you lose your communication jade tablet? If you lost it, then go back first. I can do it myself. Seeing this, Xiao Juanheng showed a gentle smile and said, Although my strength is not as good as yours, but I can't help you. What's more, you have to deal with a mythological beast. Father asked me to come. If I go back first, I am afraid that it will be difficult to explain to him. His voice paused, and his gaze fell on the little girl in his embrace, and said, Besides, you brought such a small child in. If you really meet the mythological beast, what will she do? So I will stay and help you. Furthermore, I've already sent a message back, just now, asking my father to send someone over to take the child back. It's too dangerous here. Hearing that, Xiao Junyan frowned and glanced at the little thing in her arms. She did not say much and only said, Let's go. Young master, can we follow young master? The two youths followed up and asked cautiously. It was a rare opportunity to get close to the young master. They really didn't want to let go of such a good opportunity. One had to know that the young master would select a group of personal guards from the family in the future. If they could catch the young master's eye, perhaps they could follow by the young master's side and do things for the young master. To them who were from the side branches, being able to become the trusted aides of the young master was an extremely glorious thing. Xiao Junyan glanced at them and seemed to have thought of something. She nodded and carried the little thing in her arms as she walked forward. It was also because of this that the few of them temporarily formed a small team, with Xiao Junyan as the leader. In the evening, Yu shouted, I am hungry. Hungry? There are seclusion pills. As Xiao Juanheng spoke, she took out a medicine bottle from her space. Chapter 4898. Yes, even if the two youths were injured, they were still eager to show off in front of him. After hearing his words, they immediately went into the forest. Xiao Juanheng stared blankly for a moment. She glanced at the little girl sitting beside Xiao Junyan, then looked at Xiao Junyan again. Slightly surprised, she asked, You wouldn't have brought the two of them along just so that they could do these things, right? What else could it be? Xiao Junyan asked indifferently. He said it so matter-of-factly that Xiao Juanheng didn't know what to say. She just looked deeply at him and the little girl. In her heart, she knew that this little girl was very important to him. Only in so many years, she had never seen him value anyone so much. But now, he was so concerned about a little girl. It was really surprising. Thirsty? Do you want to drink water? Xiao Junyan's attention was on the little chubby girl who was pouting beside her. Looking at her fuming appearance, he couldn't help but reach out and poke her little face. Yu was still sulking. The dagger had been confiscated, but this person was still staring at her and hugging her, not giving her a chance to escape. At this time, seeing him reach out and poke her face for fun, she immediately turned her face to the side and opened her mouth to bite his finger. Little rascal. Xiao Junyan chuckled. He retracted his hand and gently flicked her forehead. I'm not a little rascal. Yu snorted. She didn't bite her finger and was flicked on the forehead instead. She couldn't help but touch her forehead and turned her head away, ignoring him. Drink some water. Xiao Junyan handed the water bag in his hand to her. No, you didn't take it. She folded her hands and withdrew them. Do you want some fruit? As if by magic, he took out some fruits. But with one look, one could tell that they were wild fruits picked in the forest. Don't. Ewer didn't even look at him and said, seeing that she didn't want it. He handed the wild fruits in his hand to Xiao Juanheng. Then, he took out 2 red eggs from his space and held them in front of her. He asked, then what about these? Looking at those 2 eggs, Ewer couldn't help but blinked her eyes, then curiously asked, what is this? Seeing that she was interested, the corners of Xiao Junyan's lips curled up slightly. A smile flashed across her eyes as she said, these are the eggs of the flame bird. They are very nourishing for the body. As she said that, she placed the 2 red eggs in her hands and said, eat them. Xiao Juanheng, who was watching from the side, was already in a daze. He suddenly felt that he didn't recognize this Xiao Junyan beside him anymore. Was he really Xiao Junyan? Was it really not someone else in disguise? Ewer looked at those 2 red eggs in her hand, and feeling that they were still a little hot, she curiously asked, can I eat them just like this? Do you need to cook it? The egg of the flame bird can be peeled and eaten. Not only is it nourishing to the body, it is also extremely nourishing. It is a rare good thing. As Xiao Juanheng spoke, she looked toward Xiao Junyan. She really could not figure out why he would treat this little girl from the side family so well. However, what made her even more dumbfounded was that he actually took an egg from the little girl's hand and said, I'll help you peel it. Then, he peeled the egg and handed it to her to eat. Xiao Junyan looked at the chubby little girl who was puffing up her cheeks like a little squirrel eating the flame egg. A wonderful sense of satisfaction rose in his heart. Seeing her eating happily, he also felt happy. Chapter 4899. The 2 of them looked at each other and asked, Second young master, what happened to you? Xiao Juanheng regained his senses and waved his hand. Walking over to the place where they were roasting the meat, he sat down and said, don't worry about me, just let me be alone. Seeing this, the 2 of them did not ask any more questions. While roasting the meat, they paid attention to their surroundings. As the sky gradually darkened, the temperature in the forest also dropped. The few of them sat around the fire and ate meat. After eating her fill, Ewer helped to fiddle with the branches or add more branches to the fire. Because Ewer was worried that she would not be able to withstand the night wind in the forest, Xiao Junyan hugged her in his arms and covered her with a cloak before falling asleep. The next day, early morning, when a morning sun shone through the lush leaves and fell on Xiao Junyan's face, he instinctively tightened one hand, while his other hand wanted to pull the cloak higher to cover the chubby baby in his arms. Who knew that when he tightened his grip, he felt empty. Almost instantly, he opened his eyes and looked into his arms. Where was that chubby baby's figure? His sharp and indifferent gaze swept the surroundings. Releasing his divine sense, other than the occasional sound of insects in the forest, there was only the rustling sound of the wind blowing through the trees. Ran away again? His expression was a little ugly. His hand reached for the dagger hidden in his sleeve. It was already empty. Clearly, that little fellow not only ran away after putting them down, but also took back the dagger that he had confiscated. After so many years, this was the first time that he had fallen for such a chubby baby. Moreover, he had let her run away from his eyes twice in a row. One could well imagine the gloominess in his heart. Thinking of this dangerous forest and how small that chubby baby was, if they encountered a ferocious beast, she would not even be enough to fill the teeth. He frowned and glanced at the 3 people who were still sleeping. He did not wake them up, but instead picked up a few stones. After gathering his chi, he flung the stones at them. Then, he went into the forest to look for that chubby baby who had escaped to who knows where. Xiao Juanheng was woken up by the pain of being hit by a stone. When he woke up, he was startled. They had taken turns keeping watch at night, but why were they all sleeping so soundly? And sleeping so soundly? Looking around, Xiao Junyan and the little girl were already gone. He could not help but shout, Junyan? Junyan? Second young master? The 2 youths woke up as well. They rubbed their temples, feeling a little dizzy. After shouting in a circle and not seeing anyone, Xiao Juanheng looked towards them and asked, "Why did you all sleep so soundly last night?" "I was patrolling last night, but somehow I fell asleep." A young man scratched his head in embarrassment. He didn't think that he would fall asleep. Where are the young lord and that child? The other youth couldn't help but ask in surprise when he didn't see the two people around. Xiao Juanheng felt a little strange in her heart. Glancing at the two of them, she said, "You two go back first. I also need to go back and find out which branch that child belongs to." "Second young master, do you suspect that she's not from our Xiao clan?" The two youths asked in surprise. "I originally had some suspicions, but after seeing Junyan, he said that he was the one who brought her here, so I didn't ask any further. But now we've obviously fainted because we've been drugged. Junyan can't possibly have used medicine on us, so it can only be that child. So I have to go back and figure out what's going on," Xiao Juanheng said, her brows tightly knitted together. Chapter 4900. Yuer didn't take Xiao Juanheng's suspicions to heart. Therefore, she had already returned to the cave where she had been hiding in the beginning. That divine beast-level lion crouched beside her. One person and one beast looked outside through the trees that covered the cave entrance. "Master, will they find us if we stay here?" The lion was a bit worried. After all, the Xiao clan had already sent people out to search for them. Even if the younger generation didn't find them, their elders would come out to capture them. "I don't know. If they find us, we'll hide," Yuer said. She thought for a bit and called out, "Little fox." As her voice fell, a white little fox appeared in front of her. It glanced at the lion before looking at Yuer and calling out, "Master, how's your spiritual energy recovering? How long will it take for you to recover?" Yuer was a bit anxious. After all, she was also worried that she would be captured by the Xiao clan. "Master, I'm afraid I won't be able to recover without 10 days to half a month," the little fox said. "Is it useless even if I give you pills? How about I give you one of the pills that mother gave me?" she asked. The little fox shook its head and said helplessly, "Those pills are powerful, but they're not suitable for my current situation. If this place didn't have a barrier or a ray, perhaps drinking some spiritual liquid would be able to help me recover. However, this place is a floating immortal island. There are barriers and arrays set up by the Emperor. If I can't guarantee that I'll be able to leave, I'll definitely be captured, so that it didn't dare to take this risk." Heavens knew that it already regretted bringing its little master out of Cloud Sky Mountain. If something really happened to its little master, it wouldn't be able to absolve itself of the blame, even if it died 10,000 times. 10 days to half a month? Yuer clenched her teeth and said, "All right, I'll hold on for 10 days to half a month. Remember to tell me as soon as you recover." After instructing the little fox, she put it back into her space and took out a fruit to gnaw on. On the other side, at the floating immortal island of the Phoenix Master, many immortal monarchs and immortal elders had gathered. Ever since they learned that the Northern Flame Great Emperor had been killed by the Great Empress and that she had taken over his territory, they had braced themselves and wanted to pay her a visit. However, they had been denied entry several times and hadn't even seen the Great Empress's face. After being rejected again, the immortals returned in groups of 3 to 5, sighing softly. One of them said, "Back then, no one came to visit and congratulate him. Now, even if we want to visit him, we won't be able to meet him. Yeah, I really regret it." Another person sighed, with a helpless look on his face. At the same time, Fengjiu wasn't on the island either. After settling down Songmi, Taisong, and Yunyang, she left alone to check out the situation on the other Emperor's islands. Although he felt that the other 3 wouldn't dare to stay on the immortal island after the incident with the Northern Flame Great Emperor, he still wanted to go there. Even if he didn't meet anyone, he still wanted to give their immortal island a thunderous blow to shock them. At the same time, she wanted to let them know that she was always thinking about taking their lives. Chapter 4901. Fisk, they're really willing to go all out. Although this ancient array can increase their defense and counterattack power, it also consumes a lot of their own effort and spiritual power. She stood in the clouds with her hands behind her back and looked at the ripples of the airflow around the celestial island in front of her. Fine, then let's wait a little longer. You can't run away anyway, she muttered softly. She murmured softly. Her cold eyes looked at the immortal island in front of her and revealed a cold smile that said she was determined to succeed. Seeing the ancient array here, she did not go to the other two great emperors. Instead, she took off the flying feather at her waist and flew in the clouds. After flying for a long time, she saw a town below the clouds and went down. As he walked towards the city, he vaguely heard some cultivators passing by talking about Cloud Sky Mountain and Azure Emperor. She was cautious and slowed down her pace to listen for a while. Then, she walked toward an inn in front of her. Waiter, one of the best rooms. Fengjiu walked in and glanced indifferently at the people on the first floor of the inn. Then, she glanced at the second floor and stopped at the counter. Fairy, there's only one room left in the inn today. Look, the innkeeper saw her extraordinary temperament and outstanding appearance, so he personally went up to greet her. Fengjiu saw that there were many people here, and since she entered the inn, they all looked at her. She frowned slightly and said, "Then forget it. She'd better find another inn that was quieter." She turned and was about to leave when she saw a cultivator in front of her. Fairy, how about this? I'll give my best room to you. The male cultivator put on a gentle and polite look and bowed to Fengjiu, but his eyes were looking at her with amazement. There's no need, Fengjiu said indifferently and walked forward. Hey, Fairy. The male cultivator took a step and blocked her way again. However, before he could finish speaking, he saw this extremely beautiful woman glare at him coldly. That glance caused his entire body to stiffen. An icy cold aura rose from the soles of his feet and reached straight to his heart. Cold sweat seeped out of his forehead as he involuntarily retracted his outstretched hand. He did not dare to say a single word and only backed away to let her leave. When he saw her leave, the male cultivator seemed to come back to life. He took a deep breath, but his eyes were still filled with shock and fear. He covered his chest with one hand. There, his heart was thumping as if it was going to jump out of his chest. Too terrifying. That person, who was that person? Fengjiu inquired about the better inns in the city on the street. She learned that there was a relatively high-end inn at a fork in the road ahead. Usually, there were fewer people staying there, but the environment and view were the best. Thus, she arrived at the inn. As soon as she entered, a waiter welcomed her warmly. "Guest, please come in." The waiter brought Fengjiu in and wiped the table that was already shining. He said warmly, "Guest, please sit down and have a cup of tea." Chapter 4902. Just pick a quiet room for me, Fengjiu said and asked, "Waiter, I heard that there's a place called Cloud Sky Mountain not far from this city." "Yes, it's a place known to both near and far. However, this place is very mysterious because it's the place of Emperor Qing," the waiter said with a smile. After pouring tea for Fengjiu, he said, "Emperor Qing is a free and unfettered emperor. He doesn't care about worldly affairs. Cloud Sky Mountain is said to be not far from the city, but no one knows its exact location. Many people want to visit it, but they can't find it." "Oh, is that so?" Fengjiu said in surprise. "However, there are some who know it, but they're all immortals who are on good terms with Emperor Qing or experts like immortal monarchs. Ordinary people can't find the location of Cloud Sky Mountain." As the waiter said this, he took a plate of peanuts and small pastries from another waiter and said, "Sir, these are gifts from the inn. Please try them first. If you need anything else, please call me. I'll go upstairs and show you the door sign." As he said this, he bowed and retreated. Fengjiu nodded secretly. The waiter of this inn had undergone strict training. Whether it was in treating people or receiving things, they were all very good. Moreover, it was obvious that the people who came in here were all cultivators in brocade robes. Although they were curious about her, they didn't look at her too much. They just secretly looked at her for a moment or two and then looked away. It wasn't considered offensive. She sat in the inn for a while, drank 2 cups of tea, and ate some pastries. Then, under the guidance of the waiter, she went downstairs to take a look at the rooms. The waiter chose the innermost room for her. It was quieter. When the back window of the room was pushed open, she could see the scenery and the street in the distance. The room's layout was elegant. She had to admit that it was really a good inn. After looking at the room, she left the inn and walked around the city. She bought some pastries and snacks, and also bought some necessities and clothes for the 3 children in the city's ready-made clothing store. She thought that since she passed by here and was so close to the children, she should go and see the 3 children. After all, since she ascended, she didn't deliberately ask about them. Thinking of going to see the children, she bought the 3 children's favorite things and necessities in the city. As for their master, Emperor Qing, she prepared 2 jars of self-brewed spirit wine for him. After eating outside, she went to the inn. On the first floor of the inn, when the shopkeeper, who had been waiting in front of the inn, saw the red figure coming over, he hurriedly went inside and came to a table. He said respectfully, "Young master, the lady in red is back. Look as her right it." Hearing this, the man in white showed a faint smile. He stood up, avoided the table, and went to the door to wait. When Feng Jiao came from afar, she saw 2 people running in and out of the inn. The shopkeeper recognized one, but the old man didn't. As she came closer, she saw the old man standing beside a man in white. Chapter 4903. Ghost Doctor, please wait. The man in white spoke. His voice was gentle and had a hint of magnetism. Feng Jiao, who was passing by, raised her eyebrows when she heard the man's words. She paused and turned slightly to look at the man in white. "You know who I am?" Not many people had seen her since she ascended to become an empress. However, those people only knew that she was the Empress Phoenix Master who had just ascended not long ago. Very few people called her the Ghost Doctor. "May I have a word with you in private?" The man looked in the direction of Feng Jiao's voice. His eyes were very beautiful, but they were like colored glass. They were too clear and clean, as well as unfocused. Feng Jiao only took one look at his eyes and knew that this person had an eye disease. Yes. When he heard the light voice, the man smiled. There was a hint of joy in his smile. He looked in Feng Jiao's direction and said, "The private room upstairs is ready. Please." Thus, Feng Jiao was led by the innkeeper to a private room on the 3rd floor. The innkeeper personally brought in tea and pastries. Then, he waited outside for orders from the person inside. After sitting down, the man said slowly, "I am Yuan Jing. This inn is the property of the Yuan family. Due to an accident not long ago, I was fortunate enough to meet the saint and learn the name of the Ghost Doctor from him. Because I was born with an eye disease, I have never seen the colorful world. The saint once told me that the Ghost Doctor had superb medical skills. If the Ghost Doctor could help me, perhaps I would be able to see the colors of the world in my lifetime. Therefore, when I found out that the Ghost Doctor had appeared in the inn in the city, I took the liberty to come and disturb you." Hearing this, Feng Jiao looked at him and asked, "The saint? Who are you referring to?" She played with the teacup in front of her with one hand. She thought that the saint that Yuan Jing was talking about should be Mo Chun. Therefore, she wanted to confirm it. His surname is Nalin, and his name is Mo Chun. Yuan Jing said. Upon hearing this, Feng Jiao tapped the table lightly. She curled her lips and looked at the man in front of her. Her voice was soft and unhurried. "So, you want to seek medical treatment? Didn't he tell you that it's not easy for me to treat him?" Yuan Jing was silent for a moment and said, "I know. I wanted to visit him personally, but I didn't expect Phoenix Master to appear here." So that he paused for a moment, then said, "I know that since Phoenix Master is the Ghost Doctor with superb medical skills, and is also the Phoenix Master of a great Emperor and Empress, the Ghost Doctor doesn't lack anything. However, if possible, Yuan Jing still wishes to ask the Ghost Doctor to take a look at Yuan Jing's eyes and see if there is any possibility of healing them. If Yuan Jing's eyes can be healed, Yuan Jing is willing to fulfill any request of the Ghost Doctor." Feng Jiao laughed. "Don't be so full of yourself. What Yuan Jing said is true, he said seriously. Seeing this, Feng Jiu smiled and didn't say anything. She just stared at Yuan Jing's eyes. No one knew what she was thinking. After a while, she said, "Give me your hand." Yuan Jing was delighted. The old man beside him was even more excited. He hurriedly said, "Master, your hand." He hurriedly lifted his master's hand and put it on the table. Then, he helped him roll up his sleeves. He looked at Feng Jiu nervously, but didn't dare to say anything. Feng Jiu put her hand on Yuan Jing's wrist and quietly diagnosed. After a while, she checked his eyes. Chapter 4904. Feng Jiu retracted her hand, asking, "Was it born in your mother's womb?" "Yes," he answered, his heart nervous. "You've taken a lot of medicine these past few years, right?" Feng Jiu asked mildly. "Yes, I've looked for many doctors and alchemists, but they all said that there was no possibility of recovery. Ghost Doctor, I wonder if my eyes." Hope grew in his heart, but he was also worried that it would be destroyed. At this moment, he was nervous. Feng Jiu tapped the table lightly with one hand, staring at him, not knowing what she was thinking. After a while, she said, "In the deep sea, there's a fish called the scarlet-eyed monster. Dig out its fish eye and store it in an icebox, then bring it to my immortal island to find me. Remember, it has to be an adult scarlet-eyed monster. Once the fish eye is found, I'll try to treat your eyes." Hearing this, Yuan Jing couldn't suppress his excitement. "Ghost Doctor means that there's a possibility of treatment for my eyes? You can say that." Feng Jiu glanced at him, saying, "The prerequisite is that we have to find the fish eye." Okay, I'll definitely send people to find it." "Thank you, Ghost Doctor. Thank you, Ghost Doctor." He stood up with excitement on his face, bowing to her. "Okay, that's it," Feng Jiu said, getting up and walking out, returning to her room on the second floor to rest. Later, she would ask Mo Chun about this Yuan Jing. After sending Feng Jiu downstairs, Yuan Jing said to the old man beside him, "Uncle Yuan, did you hear that? My eyes can still be treated." The old man's old eyes glistened, nodding, I heard. Don't worry, I'll definitely get someone to bring the scarlet-eyed monster's eyes to you. Let's go home now. Let Father send people to find the scarlet-eyed monster immediately." He held his hand, his gentle face filled with excitement and anticipation. Seeing him so excited and happy, the old man couldn't bear to tell him that the scarlet-eyed spiritual monster was the most ferocious fish beast in the deep sea. An adult scarlet-eyed ferocious beast was especially hard to find because every scarlet-eyed spiritual monster would take 1,000 years to reach adulthood. Furthermore, they were hidden deep in the sea, so the chances of finding one were very slim. However, even if it was insignificant, it was still a hope. They could not give up. At dawn the next day, Feng Jiu left the inn early in the morning, exited the city gates, and headed towards Cloud Sky Mountain. The people in the city only gave her a rough location because no one could really find the exact location of Cloud Sky Mountain. Therefore, she could only search for it herself. She spent the entire morning before finally finding the location of Cloud Sky Mountain. Because the whole mountain, or even the whole place, was covered by barriers and formations, it was really difficult for ordinary cultivators to find this place. Just as she was looking for the entrance to Cloud Sky Mountain, the Azure Emperor, who was sitting cross-legged under a tree with Hao and Mu Chun, suddenly opened his eyes. "There are guests at the foot of the mountain," he said slowly, looking at the clouds in front of him. Hearing Hao-Er's voice, Mu Chun opened his eyes and looked at each other in surprise. They had been by Master's side for so long, but it was extremely rare for someone to come to Cloud Sky Mountain. "Is it Master's friend? Do you need me to go and greet him?" Hao-Er looked at his master and asked. Chapter 4905. Yes. The two stood up and respectfully responded. After receiving the token that could open the enchantment and array, they turned around and went down the mountain. At this time, they still did not know that the person their master had asked them to pick up was their mother, whom they had been thinking about all this time. Feng Jiu walked around the foot of the mountain and finally found the mountain gate. She stopped and thought that since she was a guest, should she greet the Qing emperor first? After all, it did not seem good to enter someone else's place without greeting them. Just as she was thinking, she saw two small figures flying over from the clouds. When she saw them, her eyes softened and her face overflowed with a smile. It seemed that the Qing emperor knew that she was coming. Didn't he send her two sons down to pick her up? Looking at her two sons, whom she had not seen for a long time, her heart was filled with joy and bitterness. It was also her fault. Because she had too many enemies, she had to let them leave her side and take the Qing emperor as their master. However, Emperor Qing seemed to treat them well. Both of them had grown a lot taller, and their faces had been altered. Their faces were not the ones she was familiar with. However, they were her children after all. She could recognize their aura at a glance. The two children, who were flying over on their swords, saw the familiar red figure from afar. They were stunned for a moment, and their eyes widened involuntarily. Is that mother? Did I see wrongly? Mu Chen's usually expressionless face was full of shock and astonishment at this time. His eyes flashed with a kind of light called surprise, but he was afraid that he was hallucinating because he missed his mother too much, so he did not dare to believe it. It's mother. Mother is here. How? Was a few years older. When he saw their mother at this time, his cold little face surged with surprise and excitement after the initial shock. He sped up on his sword and flew toward the mountain gate in front of them. Mother! Mother! The two of them jumped down from the flying sword one after the other and dashed towards the red figure. When their figures touched the formation and the barrier, because they had tokens, the barrier and the formation automatically opening a path for them. Howard Chunner! Fengjiu opened her arms and caught the two people who were flying towards her. When the two small figures crashed into her arms, she hugged them tightly. She bent down and kissed their cheeks. Her gentle and doting gaze fell on the two people and said, "Mother missed you so much. Did you eat properly? Why have you only grown taller, but not fatter? Mother, Howard misses you too. Mother, Chinner also misses you very much." The two little boys were both happy and shy after being kissed by their mother on the cheek. Their eyes sparkled with joy and happiness as they looked at her. "Mother, we will eat properly," Chinner said. "Mother, Master treats us very well. We're doing very well here. We just miss Mother very much and want to see Mother." "How?" said, holding her hand and not letting go. "Good children. Mother also misses you and really wants to see you." She rubbed the two children's heads and said, "What about you? Why didn't she come down with you?" After all, her two sons came down to pick her up. It was impossible for her daughter not to follow. Inexplicably, her brows moved slightly. She looked at the two children moving their little mouths, as if they wanted to say something but did not know how to. Chapter 4906. Mother, you secretly asked her contracted beast to take her away from the mountain a few days ago. She said she wanted to see you, but she's been gone for a few days. We don't know any news about her, Howard said. Fengjiu's heart skipped a beat. She asked, "Does your master know about this?" "Master knows. Master said that you is naughty and has a good temper. Since she wants to go out, let her go. But don't worry, Mother. Master said that he has a strand of his soul in you. If you is in danger, he will appear to save her." Fengjiu nodded. "Yes, Mother knows. Let's go. Take your mother to see your master." "Okay." The two of them answered and brought her up the mountain. Along the way, the two of them held her hand and told her about their cultivation here, as well as the trivial matters of their daily lives. When they arrived at the mountain, Fengjiu saw a man with an immortal aura drinking tea at a stone table under the tree. Looking at his face, it was not the face she knew. However, she also remembered that he said that he was only using this body to do things. "Your place is very quiet." Fengjiu walked over and sat down opposite him. Emperor Qing held the teapot in one hand and poured a cup of tea for her. Snow spirit tea from the high mountains. "Try it." Fengjiu picked it up, took a sip, and put it down. "You know I'm not here to drink tea with you. You're not here to see me either." Emperor Qing smiled and glanced at her casually. "You're here to see your child. What do you think of it? Have I raised them well? They're not growing fat. It must be because you don't eat enough here." As she spoke, she pinched the arms of her two sons. She wondered if she should bring them back to stay for a while and raise their meat. Cultivators shouldn't be too heavy on their appetites. Otherwise, how can they go far on the Great Tao? Emperor Qing disagreed. His 3 disciples had probably been led astray by Fengjiu. They didn't want to eat seclusion pills and only wanted to eat 5 grains. If cultivators can't even eat the delicacies of the world, what's the use of cultivating the Tao of immortality? She smiled and took a sip of the spirit tea. "This tea is not bad. Give me 2 pounds. You're not polite." He glanced at her. "In any case, we're friends. Moreover, I brought you a gift this time." As she spoke, she took out 2 jars of spirit wine from her space and placed them on one side of the stone table. She smiled and said, "This is spirit wine that I personally brewed. It's priceless. It's not right for you to not return the favor, right?" Hearing this, he glanced at her, opened it, and took a sniff. "Good wine." Then he waved his sleeves and put away the 2 jars. The spirit wine brewed by the Empress and the Phoenix Master is naturally priceless. As he spoke, he flicked his sleeve again, and 2 exquisite tea jars appeared in front of him. He said, "I also obtained a total of 3 caddies. I'll give you these 2 caddies." Before he finished, he added, "Treat it as a gift in return." Fengjiu naturally wouldn't be polite with him. After thanking him, he put them away. You're tuning into the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.